Hey, Sox fans, welcome to Good Guys Talk Back, episode 190. I am Nick Morawski, and this is a fan-centric Chicago White Sox podcast. You can find this podcast absolutely everywhere you find your podcasts. We're also on YouTube. Subscribe, pass it along to other Sox fans in your life. We are on Twitter at Good Guys TB, and we've also got a Facebook fan page. Wow. So much to get to since the last time we recorded. We're going to break down the season to forget 2022 managerial search, of course, what's happening with Abreu. But first, let me bring in my co-host, Pat Hester. Hello, sir.
Nick, great to be here. Glad we could have this time together to kind of put this baby to bed. I was just actually came from a family party and I said, gotta go podcast, gotta record with my good friend in life, Nick Morawski. And they said, what the hell can you have to talk about? It's over. What do you have? And I said, there's a lot to talk about. There's so many things. And I know one of the items we're going to touch on today is our highlights and lowlights. So lowlights, I mean, we could fill an entire 50 minutes with just the lowlights of this season. So a lot to break down, a lot to get to. And I'm excited to spend some time with you, friend.
Yeah, you hit it right. I have said that to other folks, especially, deep in the off season, in January sometimes. And folks are like, what are you talking about with the Chicago White Sox in the off season? I'm like, there's always something. And diehard Sox fans want to hear about their team because they don't get it, on a regular basis, especially now with Bears season dominating, and you got Bulls coming up and Blackhawks, of course. There's a lot to get to since the last time we recorded. Last Sunday. This was right before the official Tony La Russa statement. Obviously, the season has wrapped up as well, and Rick Hahn spoke, all that stuff. Sox obviously finished the season perfectly at 500, 81-81. Second place in the AL Central, finished 11 games back of the Cleveland Guardians. They were a 500 team to a T, Pat. They were 37 and 44 at home, 44 and 37 on the road. First half of the season, 46 and 46. Second half, 35 and 35. I can go on and on and on of how 500 this team was. Any final thoughts of 2022? And we're going to get to best and worst moments, but this last week of play, it really didn't do much for me. I was just kind of waiting it out. If you could use a football analogy, just taking a knee, letting the clock run out, really.
Yeah, no doubt about it. I think I take away, from those numbers you just spewed out was the home record. It's just so odd. Even poor teams can usually have at least a 500 record at home. It was just surprising how bad they played in extra innings at home. I don't know what the numbers are, but they're just they weren't very good. I don't get it. And a lot of times, and this year, looking back at a lot of the attendance of games, I was happy with what I saw. I mean, I don't know. I think ticket sales were up
over 2 million.
There was a lot of juice in the ballpark and a lot of nights. So, the fact that you had a home field advantage, there was a lot of hype for this team and a lot of excitement and love, and couldn't wait to watch this team play. And the way they just were flat on most nights at home, and how flat they were, first games of series for the most part, and how flat they were against teams that were, not very good teams. You and I witnessed it versus the Diamondbacks way back. It felt like a million years ago now. So I think that's what I'll take away from this season, is how poorly they were outplayed at home versus last year. I mean, last year they were a fantastic team at home, and rightfully so. And they won the division pretty handily by 10 games because they really played well at home. And this year, it never happened. You and I kept talking and waiting. Well, when the weather warms up, this team's going to start hitting the ball of the ballpark at home. And it just never materialized. And it's just so odd. This whole season is just so odd. But that, I think, is the most, mind-boggling thing, is how poorly they played at home.
It really, we felt we were waiting for this the flip of the switch, right? And it happened for a short period of time under Miguel Cairo, and we could point fingers in a lot of different direction of what was going on. It felt like something was different, and the players were saying as much. But then they, after that first game against the Guardians, that was over. It seemed like they just absolutely quit, and it's felt like the last 10 days, it just hasn't. We're just waiting, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's focusing on 2023, the off season, and so forth. Did you have some best moments? I honestly, I was trying to think about some of my favorite moments, and it's few with this team, not only in person, but also watching this ball club. I just was not that excited about this team. Like 2021.
It was hard, and I jotted them down. I guess the Astros games 1 and 2.
Sure, yeah.
That would probably be the most exciting, especially in front of the home crowd. The couple come from behind. You think that's the jumping off point. How many times did we say the jumping off point for this team, Nick, this year? I go way, way back to the beginning of the season after dropping the opener of the year. Then they go 6-2, and I thought, okay, that the first game's behind us now. This is the team we're going to see. We're going to take off from there, and that was quickly followed by an 8-game losing streak. And I guess Cease's flirt with the no-hitter would be the top 3 in terms of the real highlights for this season. I can't think of many more. Again, I go back to those just little things you take for granted in a year. You go watch a baseball game or you watch 162, you're going to probably see a team go hit a walk-off home run. I don't recall them hitting a walk-off home run. I don't recall. There were maybe 1 or 2 grand slams this year, which is it just all those things that are exciting plays in baseball. I mean, baseball has so much downtime, and those are 2 of the most exciting plays, whether it's a walk-off home run or a grand slam, whatever it might be. Some of the most exciting things when you don't have those, it's like, wow, there wasn't really much to get excited about. I mean, did you have anything different than I had?
Michael Kopech's performance against the Yankees. Now, even though that was not in the home ballpark, that was the doubleheader sweep where they swept the Yankees. I think it was on a Sunday.
Yep.
That felt like, whoa, something's different here. That comeback win against Oakland, how they played against Oakland, and that was still during that exciting Cairo time where they took 2 or 3 from Seattle, and they took 3 or 4 from Oakland. It was like, here we go. Something's going on here. Other than that, I don't like we're looking at a team that nobody hit 100 RBIs. Nobody hit 20 home runs. I look at MVP and Cy Young as Dylan Cease. I mean, he was the most exciting, figure on the Sox team. You could maybe even say Johnny Cueto, but he's not in the Dylan Cease conversation. But Cueto was fun to watch.
Yeah.
You're right on with the Cease one hitter. I mean, boy, if that was the no hitter, that was the greatest moment. And it's probably up there. It's probably in the top 3 because of how this season went. So deflating, so dejecting. But here we are, and I think with this will stick with me for a long time because of the expectations, and I'm sure there's going to be more information that comes out. And there's also going to be people that just have no answer. I think there's going to be some players that are just like, I don't know. I just don't know exactly what happened. So worst moments, there's a ton of them. Defense, base running, the collisions, the errors, the misplays in the outfield, short outfield. The lack of production with runners in scoring position over and over again, bases loaded, 2 men on, nobody out. What are we doing here? And then a lot of the TLR stuff, the love for the legend early in the season, that just, man, that was nauseating, confusing, and it just had everything. The season had just an absolute mixed bag of disappointment, and I'm trying to move on from it, but I feel like it helps to talk about it a little bit. So, I don't know. That's where I almost want to leave discussion with 2022 there.
Yeah, I mean, I've got 3 things that I just jotted down. I've got the triple play versus Minnesota,
Oh boy.
which, again, you just summed it up with the comedy of errors between running the bases and, the play in the field. I mean, that you could put that in front of, you can put that in front of your son Vince one day and say, Vinny, this is what the 2022 season was all about right here in this was 1/2 inning
Yeah.
in the triple play. And you go, this is exactly how you don't run the bases. You need to make sure you keep track of the outs, all that kind of stuff. So the triple play, I put down the 2 separate 8-game losing streaks that they had during the season that couldn't have come at worse times. And then it's not a singular moment, Nick, but it's other teams, other fans, and other broadcasters mocking us
Sure.
openly.
Yeah.
And a lot of it being TLR related. But, when you've got the Guardians and their celebration after the White Sox, when you've got other broadcasters, even our own broadcasters questioning and confused and confounded by what our manager's doing and reasons why. And, like it's embarrassing
Yeah.
to be a
That's a good
fan
word. Yeah.
of the team that people are just mocking and making fun of the entire season. And you can't. All you want to do is stick your head in the sand like an ostrich and just hide from it, because it's like, what are we, a professional franchise? And then even our own fans, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing for me to see our fans, and I get why they do it, and I don't disagree with them, but holding up banners that say "sell the team." When you're a fan of a team that it has other fans saying that the ownership needs to sell the team, it makes me feel like we're the Saints, back in the day, the Aints, and we've got garbage bags on our head. I mean, this is the team I root for. What are we doing here?
Yeah, you almost have to separate yourself from the organization, from the human aspect of the ownership, because I don't really believe true change is going to happen until Reinsdorf is gone, in whatever way that is, until there's new ownership. But I root for this White Sox team through and through, multi-generational fan as you are. This is my team. I'm not hitching my fan wagon to anybody else in the playoffs. I want to see some good baseball. I want to see some fun games. I'll continue to watch this postseason. But it's not like I'm changing allegiance.
Yeah.
The Sox are my team. I want to see a better product, almost demanding it. What we found out through Rick Hahn's comments, obviously Tony La Russa not coming back in 2023. A lot went into Rick Hahn's comments about this next managerial search and who's in charge, and it's going to be a collaborative effort. Yet I'm going to spearhead it. What they're looking for in terms of experience and maybe an outside of organization perspective. He said a lot. I don't know if I believe all of it. I'm very doubtful. I've seen enough from Rick Hahn, and someone say I haven't seen anything from Rick Hahn. 2 playoff wins and a division title. That's about it. So your takeaways maybe from this managerial search we're heading into right now, this unknown that Rick Hahn is apparently leading, but it's a collaborative effort.
It's fine to have a collaborative effort, but tell me who has the final say. That's what I want to know. I'm fine if you want to sit in a boardroom with a bunch of folks, whoever you want to, whether it's Jerry and Kenny and Rick and just those 3, or whether it's a group of 20 people. You want to all have a conversation. Everybody can have an input. That's fine. But who has the final decision? If he's the general manager and he's allowed to do his job, and that's what he's hired to do, he should be allowed to make the call on who the manager is. And if that manager fails, then he should be held accountable and be fired, right? That's how other organizations run things. Successful organizations run them that way. Your organization runs it a different way. So if it's I'd like to do this and I'd like to get your permission, then it's, again, a dysfunctional situation. I'm fine if there's a collaborative effort and everybody brings their input. Hey, I'd like you to interview this person. Hey, I'd like you to look at this person. That's fine. But the decision has to be Rick Hahn's and Rick Hahn's alone. Whether you think he's a good general manager or not, we have to understand and find out if he really is a good one or not. Because again, you mentioned that you don't know if you've seen anything from Rick Hahn. I don't know if I have either, Nick, because I don't know that he's actually making the decisions on these things all the time. I would like to think that there are things that he would have liked to have done, but because he's hamstrung, he can't. So that's what I think about it. Fine, be collaborative. Tell me who has the final decision.
And I don't know if I agree with you. And I don't know if we'll ever get that as an answer, but we might get that in terms of who's chosen, by who the candidate is. You might be able to say, oh, okay, I get it now. This was Kenny. Kenny was making the decision, or it looks like Jerry went over everybody's head again with this one, or, obviously the Rick Hahn situation. I've seen the numbers, as I'm sure you have, in terms of what the odds makers are saying. So many names are on this list, and I feel like every day there's a new rumor or a new thread you've got to follow, whether it is Joe Girardi or Joe Madden or this, that, and the other. Ozzie Guillen made a full court press, as he has been for a while, in the last few games, specifically the last game that was televised in the post game on NBC Sports Chicago. Boy, he was peppered with a bunch of questions regarding his interest to being the manager in 2023. And he kind of played coy, but he also made statements, no one else knows this organization better than I do. And he might be right in that. The odds makers have him favored right now. Depending on where you look, the odds makers have got Ozzie Guillen up at the top, right up there with Bruce Bochy, and I think Alomar Jr. is pretty high. Have you leaned any more closer to the let's have a reunion with Ozzie Guillen situation?
Well, Nick, I think he would have been the right move to make in season. I think he would have been the right move to get this team. If you're going to do a last ditch effort, like we need to save this season, and you looked at it at the All-Star break and you go, this ain't working. Let's make the decision now. We can't go out and do a full managerial search. We need Ozzie to come in and take it over from here on out. Which I don't know would have been once you get to the end of the season, how does that go then next? But
yeah,
I don't know. I really don't know. I kind of like the idea of going outside of the organization. But again, we've talked about the dysfunction within this front office. Somebody comes in from the outside and they're going to say, you guys run it this way. Are you crazy? If I'm hired, this is how, from at least my standpoint, as high as I can control things, this is how I'm going to run this, and this, because this is how it works. I don't know if this organization is willing to look in the mirror and go, wow, we really screw these things up. I think they know best. So, it's going to be really telling, because if it's Jim Thome, that's
I can't believe he's on the list.
Then that's Jerry. Then Jerry made the decision. Right.
And Jerry Reinsdorf doesn't care about your feelings. And if you think he does care about your feelings, boy, I don't like, you've got to watch some more White Sox baseball, or you need to be around this organization longer. Jerry Reinsdorf does not care. He might care about the people that he employs that are surrounding him. Thus, a hiring Jim Thome cares about White Sox legend Jim Thome. And I'd like to see him as the manager. I would like to boost his career. Let's do this. He loves the loyalty of the people around him. I think he protects those people, their family. Sure. But you and I, as fans, he doesn't care. I don't believe it. I just don't believe it after what I've seen over 35, 40 years and have read about too. So I get the Ozzie Guillen thing. I get why people are clamoring. I think that if Hahn is truthful in this, and this is really something that they want to do, then you go outside of the organization. That eliminates, I think, guys like Ozzie Guillen. That
Mm-hmm.
eliminates AJ Brzezinski. That probably even eliminates Willie Harris, Miguel Cairo, Jim Thome, Chris Getz. You go outside, but then this is the risk that Jerry, the dice, the gamble, the card flip. You bring somebody outside the organization, and then if you give them free reign, they're going to look at it like you said, to your point. They're going to say, "What's going on here? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
why do you have people in these positions, that do nothing? I want a clean house. I want Boston gone. I want McEwing gone. I want to hire all coaches. Like, you're doing this wrong down in this pipeline. Everything's going to change." I just don't think Jerry and the front office want that. They don't want somebody ruffling the feathers. Even though they say it, they
Yeah.
truly don't want it.
Something tells me in my heart that Rick would be open to that. Like Rick is like craving, like, could somebody please point
Help
out,
me.
help
Somebody
me,
help.
please. I'm going to blink twice. And then when I do that, you say all the things that I wish I could say, but I like my job and I like getting paid. And I know I've basically got a job for life and I can suck at it. No, and it doesn't really matter. Wins and losses don't really matter on my resume. I'm here. I've been loyal and I'll be handsomely paid to do a job. So, but I think secretly he goes, I wish I could get somebody in here that sees it the way I see it. So maybe there'd be two of me then,
Do
rather
you think
than
he
me on an
feels
island.
do you think he's like, "Whoops, yikes. I got way into this gig and now I don't know how to get out of this gig."
I don't
And
know about that, Nick.
and I know what needs to be done, but if it truly goes that way, I might be out.
You know what? You know what? If we've talked a lot about Rick Hahn and how he's got an ego, right?
Oh,
You hear him
sure.
talk, and
Oh, yeah.
he's got a huge ego on him. And I think if he if he thinks as much of himself as he portrays, he probably should stand up and say, this is the way it should be done. And if he gets fired, then in his mind, he's going to get hired by somebody else. I think he's a good enough front office guy. He's going to have a job
Talk his way into
somewhere.
a job.
Right.
Yeah.
And let's be honest with ourselves too. I'm sure that if he got fired tomorrow, he's not shopping at Aldi the next day. I think he'll be fine. I think he'll be able to survive for a little bit until he finds another job. Okay.
Yeah.
So I think he's going to be all right. And I'm sorry if I offend anybody that shop at Aldi.
If you haven't been in Aldi in a while, they have made improvements.
Do you
They might have
put a quarter to buy a cart and then return the cart at the end of the shopping section?
They have made. I think Aldi has made more improvements than the White Sox have made in the last.
That's
years.
okay.
So
touche.
yeah. So watch yourself with this Aldi stuff, this Aldi slander.
Well, I apologize to Aldi and all their employees and all the great stores.
So here's something that Hahn did say in the whole press conference. And by the way, I don't have a name in terms of manager, and I know there's a lot of love for Espada and Lombard and these other folks, and that's great. Maybe they interview well, maybe they're a perfect fit. I am looking for real change. I am looking for a true managerial search. I am looking for somebody outside the organization that comes in and has the winning touch, and they've been involved in a well-run, successful organization. And I want the process to go where, hey, hands off. You are the new manager, clean house.
Mm-hmm.
Get your coaching staff in order, however you want it. Like that's what I want. And I don't know. I don't really have a name. I just want a well-run managerial search, and then things to fall in order. And I know that's asking a lot, though.
Yeah. Well, it shouldn't be asking for a lot. I mean, there's going to be candidates out there that fit everything. The list outside of some of the people is a really strong list of candidates, I think, and the speculation out there. You've got some interesting names on there. You've got some, I think, some people with some cachet that have been part of really good organizations that have won, and I'm going to give any of those people like that a fair shake, right? if you tell me it's Chris Getz or it's a Jim Thome, I'm not going to be real thrilled about it
Yeah.
because I just don't know what they bring. I mean, Thome's been part of the organization as an ambassador. I think he's working. I think he's coaching somewhere at some level. He's in the game in some way, shape, or form, and a fantastic ball player when he was, part of our organization and others. But I got to have somebody that's a professional coach or has
Yeah,
managed
the fact
before.
that you can't name where he's coaching or what he's doing
He
tells
may have
us
coached in a futures game. I have no idea.
I do. Hey, I'm in baseball. Okay. Just take my word for it. I'm
Yeah.
coaching somewhere. You don't need to know where that's at. I know what's going on. So give me a shot. I think we will learn a lot about who made the decision. And that decision, I think we'll also know if there's really going to be change. If it's a
Mm.
Jim Thome, there isn't going to be a lot of change.
Yeah.
It's you do not have free reign to do everything you think you're going to do.
Yeah.
So and something in this Hahn press conference, he was asked about Jose Abreu. Everybody wants to talk Jose Abreu right now, understandably, and he was non-committal, which is classic Hahn. Why would he say something and commit to a Jose Abreu situation? Jose Abreu is free to walk right now. He is a free agent, and 9 years with the White Sox. Talk about White Sox legend. Jose Abreu is a White Sox legend. Okay, he will have his number retired. He'll have a statue. You can't say anything bad about Jose Abreu. And yes, he deserves so much more. And yes, he had a great batting average this year and on base percentage, and he came up clutch a lot of times. But he had 15 home runs, 75 RBIs. His power numbers have fell off. Sure, it looked like he was the only guy that still cared. Yes, he deserves it, but I think he's going to get it with another team. Bob Nightingale just recently, the White Sox whisperer, who it seems like things get told to him from the front office and he puts them in his articles for USA Today. He came out with something just recently that it looks like the Sox are going to let Jose Abreu walk. The outrage, I understand from fans. You've seen it, Pat. Where are you at with this Abreu situation as we've kind of let it marinate for about a week or so?
Yeah, it makes sense. If you're going to sit there and tell me, I understand if you're upset about Jose Abreu, and that's fine. I don't, I agree with you. He deserves better than what he's gotten. And I appreciate everything he's done. I appreciate him playing through the pain that he's played through. He usually leads the league in hits by pitch, and he runs and plays hard and all that fantastic stuff. And when he first got here, Nick, he was must watch. I mean,
Oh,
he
yeah.
was every at bat was a must watch at bat with him. So, and he really was a diamond in the rough, if for lack of a better term. But you can sell me on the idea of keeping Abreu. You can sell me on that, but you also have to tell me then what you're going to do with Vaughn, Sheets, and Aloy, and maybe to an extent, Yasmani Grandal, because you've just got too many people that are DHs. You drafted Andrew Vaughn to be the next Paul Konerko, is what you've done, and he's shown flashes, but I don't think, this year nobody did. But this year in particular, he didn't do enough to kind of make you feel warm and fuzzy about letting Abreu go. That's the other problem, right, Nick? I think that if Vaughn had gone out and hit 30 to 35 home runs and closer over 100 RBIs, maybe people are going, okay, yeah, we see it. The future's there. But when you have a guy that basically put up the same numbers as Jose did, and he's the one that's taking over, then you go, well, wait a minute, we've got a guy that can do this that's a former MVP, and we kind of trust a little bit more. But again, I can be sold on the idea of keeping him, but that means you have to tell me the other moves that you're making. You have to trade Gavin Sheets and or Andrew Vaughn, because Aloy to me is not an untouchable player, but he's shown me enough in terms of his power that you can't just let that stick go, and he's thrived in the DH position. So tell me who you're trading and what you're going to get back for them. If the Sox keep Jose, they it it signals to me that they've got a plan to move those other players, one, both, all, some, three of them maybe. And I'm okay with that. You tell me what we're getting back, and we're going to be a better ball club. But if you're telling me that we're not getting rid of those other players, then Jose, unfortunately, is the odd man out.
Yeah. Jose Abreu played in 157 games this season, had 15 home runs and 75 RBIs. Vaughn in 134 games had 17 home runs and 76 RBIs. Now, Vaughn was also playing out of position a lion's share of the season. So if what's being told to us is correct, Vaughn, a cerebral guy, and I can't imagine trying to learn different positions, left field, right field, it taxes you. It absolutely taxes you if you're a mental player. I'd like to see, this is a gamble, but I'd like to see what Vaughn will do full time at first base. And if he's more comfortable and he brings that to the plate, I mean, you've seen the glimpses, and I just think the Sox have painted themselves into a corner. This is their doing. This log jam that they have here, you kind of saw this coming, and we've seen this though as longtime Sox fans with other players. Ozzie Guillen after 13 years in a uniform, Frank Thomas, after 15 years, maybe. Robin Ventura after 8 or 9. Mark Burley, those were tough goodbyes. Those were really difficult decisions. I'm someone that, I'm a fan of the front of the jersey. I absolutely am. Players come and go. Players turn out to not be who you thought they were. Never get too close to never meet your heroes. Is that what they say?
Yep.
Now, from everything I've seen and read about Jose Abreu, I'd like to meet that guy. And it pains me to know that he could walk and go wear a different uniform and maybe even win a World Series in a different city with a different fan base. I don't like talking about it, but that's the reality of where we're at right now. And it's not, to me, a money thing where, I think we're going to trim salary and we're going to use that money for something else. It's simply a positional, lineup issue for the White Sox.
And if we were in a position, Nick, where you had solidified the majority of your lineup and the spots in the field, and you go, well, we can easily bring Jose back and let him ride out his career, and we can see what we can get out of him the next 2 years. We think he's still got enough to contribute on this ball club. And, we're not going to, if you're a DH away, right, and you go, well, why would I need to go on the open market to get somebody else? I've got this guy right here. Let's sign him up for the rest of his career. But you've just got too many things outside of Jose Abreu that you have to address that are unfortunately more pressing. And you need those chips and able to move things around to fill those other spots. And he's just not a priority. And I'm sorry that if that sounds harsh, and maybe it is a little harsh, but he's just not a priority right now. You have to look at it from a business standpoint. And again, the fans' reaction to some of it, the extremes that I've seen on Twitter, it's almost laughable and embarrassing. I'm sorry. I'm embarrassed for some people.
What was the sign that was on the championship plaza?
If Abreu walks, I walk. See you later, because you're a moron.
Well, and Jerry's like, great. Okay. You think I care? I mean, that does Jerry nothing by reading that.
Yeah. And I'm sorry if that person listens right now and I just called you a moron. So sorry to the people at Aldi, and I'm sorry to all the morons out there.
What are you doing here? We're trying to get to episode 200, and you are just,
well, I'm making enemies. Is that not how you
certainly are?
Well,
it took you a while, but here, episode 190, you're finally finding your voice in terms of the enemies. Yeah, it is. It's not a matter of, well, I don't think he can produce anymore. I think Abreu can be still a productive player. I really do. But I think you just have to. Guillen talked about it quite a bit, thinking with your head and your heart. And the Sox have to be smarter here. I know people are going to say, well, you really put the pressure on Andrew Vaughn. You really are going all your eggs in Andrew. Well, I think that's what the Sox kind of did when they drafted him so high.
Yeah.
It's like, well, this is who we want as our future.
Yeah.
And things went sideways with Aloy can't stay healthy in the outfield. You thought he was going to be your left fielder. You have not been able to figure out right field, and you didn't find a DH, a lefty bat. So this is where we are right now. The Sox have a lot of holes to fill, and I'm sorry, it's going to come down. Abreu's going to walk.
Yeah, and there's some things that I've seen too. So speaking of morons, I sent you a clip from the MLB Network, and it was Dan Plesac and Harold Reynolds talking about the Sox situation. And when I hear people like that suggesting one, keeping Abreu, and then moronic things like moving your best outfielder to a corner position because that would best fit your needs, I don't have a lot of time for those people. I mean, you want to move a Gold Glove center fielder to a corner position. That was their discussion. They were talking about the manager. They were talking about Jose Abreu and how to make this ball club better. And they totally ignored the fact that that you have people playing out of position. And they said that Gavin Sheets can play right field. So those are just people that are completely out of touch. And it's unfortunate that I hope that our fans aren't listening to that kind of stuff and they listen to more of the insiders. And I'm sorry to say, keep listening to Bob Nightingale, whether you like Bob Nightingale or not. He's the one you're going to get the most information, the most accurate information about, this ball club. So I guess I'm just frustrated at the whole thing, Nick. And I don't know why I let it get to me, but it just looking at the reaction of people, like thinking again with their heart and not their head, those aren't prudent moves.
It's not an easy thing to say goodbye to a guy like Jose Abreu. It's not, because we thought he was really going to be the guy that would get the trophy first and hold that up. When the parades were happening that Rick Hahn spoke about, he has been through so much. He's seen this ball club at its worst, and he saw it in his tenure at its best last season, winning the division and getting to host some playoff games. It just didn't work out. He's been a mentor. I don't see the path, and maybe it'll become clear. And maybe, I don't know which chips fall and how they're going to fall and when they're going to fall, but there's a lot, from the managerial situation to the Abreu thing. And I think the Abreu thing has to happen quickly. That has to be one of the first things, because then I think that will set the tone, whether he's going to stay or he's going to go, for how the rest of your offseason goes in terms of players. Now, I have thought, one, if not two core players were going to leave. And the core players I talk about are Tim Anderson and Robert, Jimenez, Moncada, Abreu, Grandal. I thought one or two from the six. Now, if it's one, obviously it's Abreu. Can you see another from that core six maybe being traded off? Because that's what Hahn alluded to, that really we might not be able to throw money at problems, which was never an issue for the White Sox. It's probably going to have to come through the trade market.
The interesting name that you brought up, and I know you said think of somebody else, but the interesting name you brought up was Tim Anderson. It was a different Tim Anderson throughout the majority of the year. There's some rumors and issues, in the personal life. I'm not here to discuss those. I don't know what those are, but all I do know is I saw a different guy this year in terms of his energy, in terms of his enthusiasm for the game. And
he played in 79 games. I mean,
his availability, it just wasn't there. So I don't know what we're getting out of a Tim Anderson going forward. Is he really invested in being here? Is he going to be able to, bounce back from whatever was ailing him this year? Did it get to the point maybe with Tony where it just wasn't workable anymore with him? And it was all the things that we had feared about Tony coming in and working with a guy like Tim Anderson. Did those issues finally come to a head, and he couldn't enjoy himself playing the game anymore? And, without Tim, really fueling the offense, I mean, you saw how the offense failed. And you had mentioned it earlier that like one of the highlights of the season was that Yankees series, and Tim Anderson was a big part of that, right? And hitting a big home run in that I think second game of that doubleheader that day. I didn't see that guy enough. I didn't see that guy that came up big in big moments. Again, he didn't play enough games, so I don't know. Is he someone that other teams would be, pining for? But then what are you putting at shortstop? Are you banking on an Elvis Andrus then filling that spot at his age? Now, Elvis Andrus was fantastic, when we got him. But do you think that you can hold on to that? And that's the Elvis Andrus that we're going to get for 140 plus games next year? Can you count on that, like from a Johnny Cueto, if you bring him back on the pitcher's mound, what he did this year for the majority of the season, or is that an anomaly? I don't
Yeah.
know. I don't want to bank my season on guys like Elvis Andrus and Johnny Cueto. I just don't. I've
Mm-hmm.
got to have something better than that. And I don't know. I think of those guys, I think Tim Anderson's probably got the most upside. He's got a very friendly contract that
Mm-hmm.
other teams would look at and go, yeah, we would make a move for that. But I just don't know what you're backfilling, in that spot. I mean, shortstop is one of the most important positions on the field.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I've got there's a lot of things that they have to consider in terms of movement on this team. And I'm okay if they don't throw money at problems, Nick, but it's got to be more of an aggressive, I guess. That's the thing. It doesn't have to be a lot of money, Nick, but it's got to be more of an aggressive movement than we've seen recently, going back to last year's offseason and this trade deadline, that nothing happened. It's got to be more aggressive play.
Yeah, back on your heels, waiting for things to materialize the way you want them to before
Mm-hmm.
you strike. And there were so many other teams that were aggressive and in ways that wasn't really out of reach for the White Sox. I always go back to that Robbie Ray contract that
Mm-hmm.
was given. It was Seattle, right? That
Yep.
Robbie
Yep.
Ray from Toronto, left Toronto, went to Seattle. And that was money that I think that was up the White Sox alley. I really do. And it was a need that they definitely
It
needed
was
to
$15 million
address.
dollars, if memory
Yeah,
serves.
lefty. And so if it's going to be trade, then I'm sure they've got some idea of the routes they want to go. I think, things need to fall in place. Again, this is just hypothetical with the core six. I mean, if you had to choose, two of the core six, it's like, well, the garden weeds itself with Abreu walking. And I don't think the money is difficult with Grandal. I don't know who's going to want to pick up that money
Yeah.
for him. Mancada, same thing. That extension, like those big dollars finally start kicking in. Robert, I I don't know, man. I don't think Robert and Jimenez. I don't even know what I have with them yet.
No.
Does that sound bizarre? Like, I don't even know what I truly have with them. And maybe that's when you trade a guy,
And you know what, Nick? Maybe that's what would make us bad general managers, because I would be looking at that and I would say, I just want to see it once. I just want to see it. I want to see these guys together in the lineup, just consistently for like
yeah.
a week together. I can't tell you that I've seen them both play. I mean, I'm sure it has happened, but it's like, can you play for like a month together and just see what this lineup can be like with those two
Well, you
guys?
you, you kind of saw with Jimenez post All-Star break that
Yeah.
that man was dangerous.
Hmm.
He really was. And the Robert thing, just the inability to stay healthy, and I don't know what's the ramifications with this wrist hand situation in the off season. Who knows? Who really knows? It's just there are so many question marks, and that when I was leaving the ballpark, for the last game, thinking I was going to maybe see Abreu and give him, a standing O, and then he didn't decide to play. Okay, whatever. Walking out of the stadium to a 10-1 defeat. Okay, which it was also 10-1 in Game 4 of the 2021 ALDS. So fans leaving the ballpark, seeing their team for the last time, both of them 10-1. Last year in 2021, crushing, absolutely crushing that we couldn't win a series, especially after that blackout game 2.0. But I had some hope. I
Yeah.
was like, this team's only going to get better. I mean, this division is super winnable. We'll be right back here next year. It's going to be a fun season to watch. Hopefully they make some decisions in the offseason, address some issues, and here we go. Well, that didn't happen. Okay. And then leaving the ballpark, this past Wednesday, 10-1, I'm confused. I'm a
Mhm.
little lost. I'm like, I don't know. I want to have hope because, a new year brings all of that fun stuff, clean slate. But there's so many question marks,
Yeah.
and maybe it'll start falling into place soon with the manager. But that's where I'm at as a fan, and that's troubling.
Yeah, being confused is about what your team is going to be like when, again,
When you shouldn't have that issue, Pat, with this team. You
7 months
shouldn't.
ago, Nick, we were talking about, when we do our predictions, how many home runs is this guy going to hit? How many, where are they going to finish here? Who could possibly be the Cy Young, and who could possibly be an MVP, and not just on the team, but in the league. And when we weren't even close to a lot of that stuff, the Cy Young, yes, he's just, close in that. But uh, I think this team is closer to the. I think I want to believe it. Maybe I'm wrong. I think they're closer to the team that we, you know, thought they were. I think they can be more of that team, but there needs to be some tinkering. And and again, I go back to it, with in terms of just being aggressive about the decisions you want to make. I liked what you said about not letting other, waiting for the market.
Mhm.
Set the market, like I've always said, whether it's free agency or with trades. And you're going to have to, your trade value is on your big league club, that because you don't have much in the minor leagues. So use those assets and build where you can. And if you can, possibly throw money at a situation to make your team to put it over the top, then you go ahead and do it. That's what you should do, right? You
Yeah.
got a lot of tinkering to do. And if you go, okay, this is the final move, whether it's a free agent, right fielder, or whatever it might be, that's where you throw the money at the problem. You can't, you don't have enough depth in your organization right now to just keep waiting and waiting and waiting for
Do you
cheap
feel
options.
do you feel with the talent right here, it's probably going to be a similar team, there's in terms of players, um, with this type of team, do you think it's really just new management? It's a new manager, it's a new coaching staff, it's a new philosophy, it's a different message, and with maybe any type of anger or embarrassment of what happened this year, that could be fuel enough for 2023.
I hope so, and I hope that they took a lot of things personally, right? And I think it's I think that from the start, from the gate, like, listen, we're going to play hard. If you're hurt or injured, you're not going to play, right? But if you can't run hard and have effort that will bleed into the rest of your play during the day, then I'm not going to play you. You have to run hard at all bases and respect that 90 feet. Now I respect 90 is a big Joe Madden thing, but that makes a lot of sense to me. Like, okay, we can win ball games by getting that extra base, by cutting the corner enough on rounding second base, getting into
Little
third,
things,
the
little
little
things.
things. And don't take things for granted. You're not going to win the division by 10 games. It doesn't matter what anybody says about you in the offseason and how great you're going to be. You still have to put in the work and the time and the effort, because Cleveland will out effort you
Yeah.
if you don't get your act together. And oh, by the way, here's Tom Emanski's fielding drills. This is how you catch a ground ball. This is how I want them throwing into trash cans in the offseason from the outfield and hitting a cutoff man. And I want them watching a league of their own. You're
Hmm.
still missing the cutoff man. And keep watching that if they keep missing the cutoff man. Maybe Tom Hanks would be a great manager.
More Tom Emanski, less Aldi. Get your act together.
What have you learned from Pat Hester today?
Yeah. Well, there's never a dull moment with this organization, and that's why we, as lifelong diehard Sox fans, you and I have known each other for so many years, and have been loyal to this franchise. And it hurts us, but it also brings us right back. And this is why we will continue to do this in the off season, because I have no off season team. I mean, sure, I'm rooting for the Bears and the Bulls and the Blackhawks, but I am so invested in the White Sox year round. That's all I want to talk about, even in the dead of winter. So we'll be here.
And I know that. And I'll be here with you. We'll be there for
Absolutely.
you crazy people like us. So you can listen to Good Guys Talk Back. I don't know that we're going to go every week, but you sure as hell can bank on us recording a lot. And if news breaks, we're going to be the first on the scene. We've got the new Good Guys Talk Back copter. So if we have to fly out somewhere, Nick will be Johnny on the spot. So it'll be we're spending some money now, and we're going to be in good shape to cover this off season.
All over it. Find this podcast absolutely everywhere, and now on YouTube. So Pat Hester, always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much for talking White Sox, buddy.
Nick, thank you. Sorry if I offended anybody today.
No, you're not. You are absolutely not. Folks, again, find this podcast everywhere. We are on Twitter at Good Guys TB. We've got a Facebook fan page, and you can find it on YouTube. You can find the podcast free everywhere. Pass it along to other Sox fans in your life. We do appreciate you letting us steal some of your time as we talk Sox. For Pat Hester, I am Nick Morawski. Until next time, go Sox.